Guy Ritchie's King Arthur Legend of the Sword is a special effects spectacle that needs to learn how to focus on something for more than 5 seconds. First and foremost, this movie looks good. It was very well shot, and the special effects and the fight sequences were really fun to look at. Sometimes they looked pretty fake, but they were still fun. It was still a good time. However, visuals aside, where this movie heavily falls is in the plot and pacing. And oh boy, the pacing in this movie is strange. It's so chaotic and odd. And the best way I can make this comparison is, you know how in movies wherever people describe their plans and then you'll cut to footage of them actually going through and doing the things they're narrating over? This movie does that more than once, but also that's pretty much how this whole thing plays out. It plays out in a series of rushed scenes that don't feel spaced out. They feel rushed together, as if this movie could have been 10 minutes longer in order for them to flow more naturally. We're constantly introduced to plot point and scenes, and it cuts back and forth with no real reason for it, and it just makes it all the more confusing in the process. So much so, you won't even know what the hell is going on at the beginning. The plot basically boils down to the King Arthur story, whereas in this one, King Arthur has been separated from his royal family and learns of his destiny, learns who he is and what that means, and essentially fights to take over the throne that has been controlled by Jude Law, who had his father killed. So throughout a series of slow motion fight sequences and a plot that doesn't really go anywhere, it overall gives us a film that is great aesthetically but not much else. The script could have used another tweak. It could have used more time. It could have used a lot of things. And it really hurts it because they introduced a bunch of characters and try to give them each their quirks, but when it's constantly cutting back and forth, barely giving more than 10 seconds at a time to a single scene, it doesn't give us enough time to establish the characters or anything. We just know this one's snarky, this one's also snarky, this one is slightly less snarky. And overall, they barely even become caricatures in the process. They just become extras with names. It's not necessarily poorly acted. I'd say the acting overall in this movie was done fairly well. Although the one that plays the mage, Astrid Frisbee, sometimes here and there she would deliver a line that just does not sound right or natural, as if she was reading the script for the first time. They just said, yeah, cut, let's do that. You know. It kind of hurt her performance because overall she was one of the more interesting characters in this movie. I mean, at least I fully understood her motivation. Overall, this movie looks pretty good, but with its rushed plot and rushed exposition and no meaningful way to care about the characters, the only reason whatsoever you'd want to see this movie, especially in 3D, is because of the visuals only. But I don't think there's strong enough of an element to recommend this kind of a movie. It was lacking in a lot of areas, and overall it hurt the experience. Like I said before, maybe a little bit longer running time, maybe a second script, maybe cut out a couple of the scenes and just develop other scenes rather than, cutting to it for 3 seconds and then never referencing that scene again. Oh well. Overall, I would not recommend this movie. Its visuals alone are not enough to save it. It could have been something great, but instead it's just something that's not. Okay, spoiler time. We're going to cut into the spoiler section where I go through a few grievances with this film's pacing and plot near the end. Overall, it's entirely predictable. You see this shadowy, ghostly demon figure that kills King Arthur's dad, and I knew it was going to be the uncle. I knew straight up it was going to be the uncle killing him, and I knew there was magic and shit in this movie, so I knew it was entirely sustainable. But it built it up as some great twist, like this was a completely different character, and that Jude Law was just a pawn in his scheme or something like that. But no, the way it comes across, you know right away it's him. It's barely even a twist, really. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be a twist. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it a little bit. That could be a possibility. There's also that pointless scene where he takes the sword and chucks it into the water, only immediately afterwards to be given it back and told, oh, you gotta do this. So that's what would happen sometimes. Scenes like that would be completely unnecessary, but put in anyways, as if to add on to the runtime, which a short runtime is not this movie's is not one of this movie's faults. By far, it is not. If anything, it should have been slightly longer. Also, near the end, the mage uses a. They set up a trap. King Arthur goes in there and makes it look like he's given up. And that's when the mage strikes and summons this giant snake to come in and start eating the bad guys. And my question here is, why didn't she just send in the giant snake instead of risking King Arthur's life to go in there? I mean, the snake ate almost every single person in the room except for Jude Law. And it would have made a lot more sense. It would have been a lot less risky. Hell, if she can make giant snakes, what else can she make? Like, you'd think a person with that kind of capability would be able to kill a guy like that, like conjure up something. Hell, strike him with lightning. Let's get Thor in this movie. Yeah, I liked the mage in this movie, but overall she was just kind of around. She was just like here and there, kind of doing her own thing. You know, sometimes in this movie it seemed a lot like what a Dark Souls movie would be like. Just, you know, the dim lighting, the lighting up of the sword, the medieval architecture. There's like giant rats, giant snakes, dudes in weird armor. Like, if anybody wants to nail a look for what a good Dark Souls movie would look like, take a few clips from that. Not all of them, because they're not all great, but there are some real gems in there. But those are just my incoherent and irrelevant thoughts. What are yours? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on the social media. And as we always say, I don't know, check out the animated Sword in the Stone. Maybe it still holds up. Nah, it probably doesn't.